The Todd Shapiro Show.
Time to hit the button!
On Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Well, I'm very excited about this. We're live in the 3Sixty Secure Studios, and a new partner of ours, and got to know the team, and the individual we're about to bring live to you on air right now is really quite fascinating. He puts a lot of stuff in perspective for a lot of people in terms of what he's done, how hard he's worked, where he's been, and where he's at now with 3Sixty Secure Corp and everything they're doing. We're going to learn all about that now. Please welcome the CEO, Thomas Gerstenecker. Hey, Thomas.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, dude, man, I was really looking forward to this for the past week. I just want to ensure I'm saying your name right.
Yeah, you are. It's perfect. Gerstenecker.
Okay,
German name.
A strong German name.
Yeah.
Were you born in Germany or born in Canada?
No, Canada. Parents came over in the mid '60s. Brought my brother over, and I was able to get both a Canadian and a German passport, so I was pretty happy.
Unbelievable, Thomas, and CEO again of 3Sixty Secure Corp. You go to 360securecorp.com, and it's a publicly traded company. SAFE is their ticker symbol. So your background, I mean, I got to know you off air a bit. Obviously, we had a meeting or two, and I'm always, and this is true, man. I'm not just saying this because you're a client. I'm always blown away by people who have like storied past, hard work, and are compelling in nature, because you have a story to tell. And, with your 25 years of international security management, maybe you could just sort of give the brief background as to you and why you kind of end up in the security game.
Sure. Well, I'm not a big storyteller, but you'll pull it out of me, I'm sure.
I'll do my best.
Over the next while. So my background is military, Joint Task Force 2. It's Canadian Special Forces Group. Spent a number of years with them, in various places. And 2000, I ended up leaving there, and I had an opportunity to work for the United Nations, and I ended up spending 15 years with them. So ended up going to Kosovo right after the 78-day bombing campaign in 2000. From there, moved to Afghanistan, spent a number of years there with the UN as a security advisor. So I was basically posted along the Afghan-Pakistan border, and unique experiences there, like a lot of unorthodox security, let's put it that way, where I'd have to look at moving aid for the UN, whether it's UNICEF or WFP or WHO, through risky areas, and then basically having to go meet the local warlord. In this one particular situation, I had to meet him in a 2,000-hectare poppy field. Spent about 3 hours with him and negotiating to make sure that our aid gets passed unhindered. And at the end of the day, it worked. It's all about establishing relationships and trying to gain as much trust as you can and make it happen. From there, Iraq, Pakistan, a lot of countries in Africa, spent a number of years in New York. And I guess really where 3Sixty came from is I spent a long time hiring outsourced security, private sector, and I was always really underwhelmed with what they said they could do. And I felt that I could do it better, left a great job, came back to Canada, started 3Sixty about 5 years ago, and it's been crazy town since.
Congratulations on sort of, you have a vision, you're seeing, a hole in a market and one that you can fix and are fixing through the company. Back to, really all the it's such a moral, ethical, hard work and really helping people. It's so altruistic and you put yourself, Thomas, I would imagine that you put yourself at risk doing all this stuff. Like, is that just something that's innate in people, that's inherent, that because I don't feel like I'm the type of personality trait that could ever do that. Like, you're putting yourself in very dire and dangerous situations. Why do you think that's your personality type?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I mean, I think really it is in you. I don't think it's something that you learn. It's either part of you or not. I mean, going all the way back to 1994, I was, in my early 20s, really, and being faced going into Rwanda right after the genocide. I mean, literally weeks after. I mean, the things that we were exposed to there, watch Hotel Rwanda, it's a good depiction of it, faced with removing mines from defensive positions and things like that. I'm not sure it's not something you typically think about. It's really you are either comfortable with it or you're not, and it is definitely, I think, part of your DNA.
And not to sort of make parallels here, because I can imagine anything being tougher than that. But one of the things, being an entrepreneur and being a business mind is it's a grind on a different level, obviously, and it's a work ethic, and it's you're faced with challenges all day long. Does that, I would imagine, and I'm saying this because I have no perspective, Thomas, but I would imagine that the challenges you face in the life that you had prior to this company, like nothing could pale in comparison to those. So it must, you must feel prepared even on an entrepreneurial level because of that. Am I correct to assume that?
Yeah, I would say going from special forces to really, at the end of the day, an international civil servant with the UN and becoming an entrepreneur and ultimately CEO of a public company, I would say that the intestinal fortitude of my days at JTF2 definitely I use on a daily basis as an entrepreneur, without a doubt.
And the 3Sixty Secure Corp. Why don't you sort of, I guess, give us sort of the brass tacks about what those holes you are filling now in the security game?
Say again?
Oh, just essentially what the company does and the holes that you noticed by being overseas and watching lack of security and people, again, saying they can do this. We're going to be able to provide you this type of safety. And really, you going, we're going to do it better. And that's what you guys are doing.
Yeah, I think fundamentally human beings, complacency kicks in with everyone at some point. And, I remember an incident in Iraq where there was a bombing, UN staff were killed, the security levels were high. A couple of weeks later, normalcy kicks in, and then all of a sudden we're back to doing what we're doing, which is, lack of security and safety, and really that really kicks in. It's really a human thing, if you will. When it comes to the security companies that I've been exposed to, it's really about people overreaching and saying they can do something when they can't, and really it comes down to them just wanting to submit an invoice and making money even though they are not delivering on what they said they could do. And that's really fundamentally why I wanted to start 3Sixty, is really hire great people, employ great people, and really provide our clients with the service that they deserve, and just be honest moving forward.
So, Thomas, then how do you go and start this thing? I mean, we're in your wildest dreams, how do you go and get this, get this puppy going?
Yeah, I had a business plan coming out of it. Left a great, comfortable job in Manhattan with the UN, and looked at what I found were lacks. Get registered, get a security plan in place, and really start knocking on doors. Literally, that's what I did. I think really where it catapulted us into a different space is when I did a security assessment for a prospective licensed applicant for growing cannabis back in 2014, and at the end of it, I asked them how they're going to move all of this product safely and securely, and they had no idea. So that morphed into us going from 18 months ago with 2 vehicles, and we're now at 150 vehicles across Canada, 8 people to 600, and being listed on the CSE. It's been a crazy trip.
And a lot of that is protecting cannabis from transporting it from grow ops to and legal grow ops to dispensaries and things like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're a diversified company, so we'll provide security when it comes to consulting, monitoring of facilities, guarding, and we also do cash in transit. We just acquired the Inca's security cash in transit services, so we do financial institutes, but really the driver here has been substantially the cannabis sector, where we're now moving upwards of 100 cannabis secure transport runs a week. We protect facilities across Canada. Got some great announcement coming out soon for the U.S. Definitely exciting times. You know, the multi-year contract we have with Canopy across Canada as well is fantastic.
Thomas, it's Thomas Gerstenecker is joining us from 3Sixty Secure Studios. We watch, everyone sort of watches the cannabis craze and stuff, and you forget what goes into everything now that we see here is in Canada is legalization, and I think within the next 2-3 years in the United States of America. There's a lot of money at stake at the end of the day. You're protecting a plant, you're protecting money. Is it just sort of similar measures? Is really at the end of the day when you run a company, is there kind of a plan in place just to protect anything that needs to be protected?
Well, it's when it comes to cannabis, really, it's an emerging market, so we're still figuring things out. I mean, we entered this 18 months ago, moving product in an armed fashion, but we found out very quickly that it's much more diverse than that. So we will move things with, the 26-foot two armed individuals moving 30 million in product, or we could be moving something with an unarmored one person moving clones, baby marijuana plants from point A to point B. So I think it's not as simple as just saying, everything needs security. And we just need to apply the right measures with the right, the right mitigation.
And is there, have there ever attempted heists of this kind of stuff? Have there ever been people who have tried to, grab a truck and take off with it?
At the moment, no. I think, we're still early on. I think everyone is still really figuring out what the market looks like. And it is extremely new, but that's why we're also have that diversification of not just an armed approach, really. So we're able to hit the service lines across the board if we're moving, 5 kilos or 1,000 kilos, really. Getting hit at this point in time has not yet happened. But then again, one could argue that security measures in place mitigate that.
Without a doubt. And how does one get into the game of being, in this day and age of people, scarcity of jobs and people afraid of unemployment and things like that? I feel like that would be a cool ass job. Not that I'd ever be qualified, but how does one become an armed guard? We have, fortunately, a fantastic network through our military and law enforcement connections and also within the private sector. Fit, they come in, they have to be extremely well vetted on the onboarding, drug and alcohol tests, those types of things, detailed criminal background checks, and have the ability to pass our firearms tests on a regular basis. And, at the end of the day, they just need to come in with the right attitude and the right screening checked off and just want to do good work at the end of the day. Yeah, I feel like I'd want to apply to be the driver of one of the big trucks there. I feel like the problem is I'm thinking of it in the other side of the getaway driver.
Well, I might be overreaching. My operations team might not like this, but maybe we can somehow figure out how we can actually get you into a ride along.
Hey, Thomas, that would be, I would love to do Instagram stories on 360 Secure's truck as you're moving $30 million worth of cannabis, and I'm sitting there narrating the thing.
Well, let's see how that goes over with my team.
I'll do push-ups before, I'll come in looking pretty fit, Thomas. I'll sharpen the elbows. I'll look the part.
Fantastic. I'm sure we'll get you there.
What an amazing business. On the publicly traded side of things, which is obviously new to the industry and stuff for that being on the Canadian Securities Exchange. How's that as CEO? Answering to shareholders and obviously there's the company's doing well, and how do is that a full-time job in itself?
Yeah, it can be. If we look at all of our service lines, I would even add that piece as an additional service line. It's definitely something, and I'm always upfront. I've got nothing to hide here. That is an area that we're currently strengthening a lot on. We are, we're a junior issuer. We're in a speculative market. Diversified industry. We're not necessarily this low growth. We're not at all a low growth traditional security company, but we're also not a cannabis company. So we're somewhere in between. And I think the market still needs to figure out what we do. I think that we focus on doing our job, putting our head down, delivering on what we promise. And, I think the market's going to have to pay attention to us and, just keep on doing what we're doing.
How are the financials? Are you allowed sharing some of the sort of the financial success of the company?
Yeah, I mean, I can go as far as our latest operational update. So first of all, we came in going back 18 months. If we look at our Q2s, I mean, we were practically 2,000% revenue increase. Our Q1 ended around 3.5 million, and we expect our forward looking into Q2 to hover around 7.5. So quarter over quarter, we're well over 100% increase just over Q1 to Q2, and we plan on keeping on that trend into the next quarters. Q2 comes out later in August, early September, and I think there's going to be a lot of good news coming out of that as well.
Very exciting to hear everything going on at 3Sixty Secure Studios. Did you ever sort of give your head a shake though? And go like, my goodness, I'm here I am was doing sort of detailed special ops, UN guy, and you're running a multi-million-dollar company. You must feel very proud of yourself.
Yeah, it crosses my mind sometimes. Going from kicking doors, as an operator with special forces to doing what it did at the UN, catapulted into an entrepreneurial state, and now a CEO of a public company. There's a sharp learning curve there for sure on a number of fronts, and I'm loving every day of it.
Are Canadians in general respectful of our military? Do you think? And I'm talking sort of the regular civilian. Do we appreciate what we have?
I'll say yes. But at the same time, I think we could appreciate it a little bit more. I spent a lot of time in New York when I was with the UN, and I can say that there's a lot of good support and esprit de corps, if you will, in Canada. You go to the States, there's a flag hanging off of every door, and ribbons and things of that nature. I think we definitely are there, but there's always a little bit more to do, and we're engaging with some not-for-profit organizations that support the military as well, and we're actually going to send out some good news on that as well, just to make sure we support our troops and the veterans, and we're a massive supporter of hiring veterans here, and it's been extremely successful.
If for some reason, Thomas, you have any events and you would ever need a host, like like a half-rate host, someone can cheerlead the night along, I would be more than honored to volunteer for that.
Fantastic, all over it. And
I mean, is this do I say regular person? I'm talking about me, a regular Joe, a regular Jill. Is it a blessing or a curse that maybe we don't think about how security is really in this time, man, with technology and really a lot of bad apples that we don't want to think about exist in this world. Do we not think about it enough? How really important it is?
I would say yes and no. The last thing we want is hypervigilance. We don't want people being paranoid. I think it's really just comes down to good day-to-day situational awareness, which most people on a day-to-day basis do. Just crossing the street, they're being situationally aware. And I think that in the age of technology, and we're soon partnering with a cyber company, but in the age of technology, I think we oftentimes still tend to forget those fundamentals of not having something as simple as a 1, 2, 3, 4 password, covering your PIN, things of that nature from a security point of view, goes a long way. But I think overall, situationally, most of us have it already as we continue our daily lives day in and day out.
It's interesting you say that as sort of an aside here, Thomas, but I was watching the Blue Jay game the other day, and the first time I had watched it, only because Kawhi Leonard was there watching it in the front row, and they showed an image of him from a camera from behind him filming Mike Trout, who's one of the best baseball players, and I thought to myself, I'm like, that would have creeped me out if I was Kawhi Leonard, thinking like, did they watch me punch in my code just before that? How long was that camera on me? Granted, they didn't show any of that part of it on air, but there is always sort of people over your shoulder. We got to be careful of everything.
Yeah, no doubt. You have to. Again, that comes down to being situationally aware, down to asking the right questions to an Uber driver. To just at the end of the day, 99% of people are good people, but you're going to get that 1% that is looking for something more devious.
In recent times, we just saw what happened during the Toronto Raptors parade, and it kind of came in out of the news real quick, actually. And that is that 1%, less than 1% even. 2.5 million people having the best time, and then a couple of, if you don't mind me saying it, dicks, pull out guns and shoot people, and I still don't know how they're doing, and I wish the media would report on it more. Was that something you looked at as being at 3Sixty Secure Corp going, my goodness? They should have thought of a company like ours to really make sure stuff like that didn't happen.
Yeah, we were not involved in that. I mean, at the end of the day, again, it's about bandwidth. But events can be extremely difficult to manage because you never know, especially if it's not about putting people into chairs and access control. This is very unique, and it's extremely difficult to manage because you'll never know how many people show up. You aren't able to properly provide any real substantive sense of access control. So I think overall, I think the police did a great job in cordoning off as best as they could. But overall, a lot of people, a lot of good times, and you will have that 1% that's going to disrupt. And that happens in many cases when it comes to large events, and it's just more about, at that point, it's more about how you best respond to that versus trying to mitigate that type of thing.
Man, I like what you're doing there. You're being very careful not to fearmonger, and I think that's important. But I can tell you, as a paranoid guy, I tell people look over their shoulder all the time, dude.
Yeah.
Like it's I can't ever imagine, and I have so much respect for you. Beyond the business, dude, and you're running an amazing business, but everything you've seen and done in your life, and every soldier and every officer, I truly do. And we hear the stories in the media, unfortunately, the bad officers and stuff, and it actually sickens me because of how many good officers are doing so much for so many that so many wouldn't do, really protecting rights and freedoms at the end of the day, and protecting them as their lives. And I hear you talk, and I don't know, I almost get emotional, and I'm being very serious because I have so much respect. And I can't imagine the things you've seen and the calmness you have, and you're always out there doing it, and now the company's doing it for so many. And a lot of Canadians really happy right now because you're keeping their not to only dwell on the cannabis, but the Canadians clearly want their cannabis, so you're keeping that safe too.
We're doing what we can every day. Head down, soldier on.
I love it, man. Well, listen, I hope that we can have these catch-ups on the weekly or the monthly, whatever you'd like to do.
Yeah.
Find out, I'd like to position it with maybe some situations that may have happened and how maybe 3Sixty Secure would have done it differently, and talk about great military stories and great successes within our officers and everyone doing things that, quite frankly, you've done in the UN and other places that so many of us wouldn't. And I'd love to highlight that on a much more positive level than I think is done, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely. I look forward to it. And like I said, I will get you somehow into one of our vehicles, or at very least, we'll get you on the range.
all day. I shouldn't wear those masks they wear in The Town. You remember? You know that movie? You shouldn't wear those.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking not.
Okay. Probably a bad idea. Okay. Thank you so much, Thomas Gerstenecker, founder and chief executive officer at 3Sixty Secure Corp. And go and check it out if you're into the stock market. Do your due diligence, of course. It's the ticker symbol is SAFE, SAFE, on Twitter, $SAFE, and you can learn about the company. I can't wait to talk to you again, and please enjoy your long weekend.
Thanks, Mr. T. Chat soon.
All right, man. Thomas, thanks so much.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.